Chris.
And I'm Amanda.
What we wanted to talk about is, as we're going through this process of planning our trip to Disney World, we're kind of at the point now where we wanted to actually decide when it is that we would want to go. So it would be a perfect time to discuss different times to go throughout the year and the advantages and disadvantages to them.
So we collectively have been to Disney in April, May, June, and September. I have been with my family in July and August. I don't suggest August at all.
Yeah, and our last big trip was in September. So we were there in September for a very long time, and I don't know where you are in the country. However, in Central Florida in September, it might as well be the middle of August. It's very hot. It's very humid. It's something that can affect your day, depending on if you're there with young kids or the elderly. It's kind of something you have to include in your game plan.
The water parks are very popular that time of year. Or the resort that we stayed at in September, Beach Club, one of the resorts we stayed at in September, Beach Club, people stay specifically for the pool there.
Stormalong Bay?
Stormalong Bay. It's very popular. It's the only, if you're a DVC member and you have the opportunity to pool hop to other DVC resorts, it's the only one that you're not allowed in to unless you are a guest because of the popularity of the pool. However, we are feet to the pavement people, and even though we were staying there, we did not get
Never got to the pool.
Never got to the pool. But if you are a take a break during the day and cool off kind of family,
or take a day off from the parks altogether.
Yeah, then staying at a place like
Right.
Beach Club is something you want to anyway, go ahead.
I was going to say, my first trip was in April. It was April. It was perfect time of year. It for both crowds and for weather. It wasn't too hot. It was warm enough for you to know that you were in Florida. It was the week after. Was it the week after?
It was the week after spring break and Easter, which that's the disclaimer with saying April is the perfect time to go, because if you're going during spring break, you are going to be standing in line a lot. The week after, once everyone goes back to school, perfect. I kept telling him, since it was his first trip, I kept telling him, don't expect this. This is not the norm.
We're getting off rides and just getting back on.
We did extra magic hours at Magic Kingdom one night. We had dinner at California Grill and then popped over to Magic Kingdom. We felt like we had the park to ourselves, so we were getting on and off rides. And we would be on a ride by ourselves.
Right.
It was probably the most fun.
Yeah, and
Adult fun.
Coupled with the fact that it was my first time, so it was really nice. Our impromptu trip this past May, we had great weather.
Oh, it was great, yeah. Mid-70s.
Yeah, we didn't really keep because it was an impromptu trip. We didn't really game plan for worrying about crowds or weather, and we kind of lucked out on both. It was one of the rare times we'll spend 4 or 5 days in Southern Florida and not see a drop of rain.
Especially at that time of year.
Right.
No rain, low humidity. The last day we were there, it was really hot.
Right.
And it was also a holiday weekend. It was Mother's Day weekend, which they just this year turned into a blackout date as far as like if you're a Table in Wonderland member. We couldn't use our Tables in Wonderland card because they said that Mother's Day weekend has been growing in popularity.
So if you go, and then we also went in June. So if you're going to go in June, you're obviously going to be dealing with summer crowds. There's no, there's really no avoiding that. However, for some people, summer's your only option. So we've been in summer. You make it work. Certainly, when you have the flexibility of staying more days, you can sort of play that by ear. You can avoid the crowds. there's resources online to tell you what days are particularly busy for which parks. Generally, I believe one of the rules of thumb is if there are extra magic hours at a park in the evening, the next day the park is one of the least crowded.
Yeah. In general.
At least that next morning that it is.
In general, we found that if there's extra magic hours at a park and you have that park hopper option, which we always recommend, that going to a park that doesn't have extra
I would
magic
say
hours,
we always recommend. It works for us.
Yeah.
It's something we'll
get
discuss more
into.
in depth.
Yeah, we'll get into. But we always try to avoid the parks that have the extra magic hours unless we have a dining or something scheduled that which you will find dining's harder on the days there's extra magic hours. The crowds are going to be heavier for the people that don't have the park hopper. They will go to that park and stay there for the day. So we try to go to those parks for those extra magic hours and then go to another park.
Right.
Or go to another park and then head to the extra magic hours. But we've found we've avoided crowds pretty well that way.
Right. We've been in June, we've been in May, we've been in April, we've been in September. We haven't been really during the winter months. I mean, you may have.
I have not.
Okay.
No, November through March I've never been.
Okay.
Now, when we initially started talking about this coming trip, this coming over a year from now trip, I think we both looked at December a little bit. I've heard that between Thanksgiving and Christmas break, the crowds are supposed to be really low.
Right.
However, and I would love to see the Christmas decorations and the Christmas party. But why did we decide against it?
Well, I think we're not. I mean, I sort of thought we weren't ready with kids the age of ours, pulling the trigger really on spending a holiday there.
Yeah.
We're not ready for that. Maybe that might be something we do someday down the line. But in terms of around those holidays, I just don't think it was the amount of time that we're looking to go. It just really wouldn't work because you have to figure all the preparation involved with Christmas in December.
Yeah.
Sort of that mad rush from Thanksgiving, which to me is the main event holiday, to Christmas. It just isn't something that we were ready to really pull the trigger on, so to speak. So ruling out December, we sort of decided that January was when we were going to try and take this trip. Now,
well, we looked at January and February.
We did.
And
that's true.
For those of you who don't know, Disney's prices aren't totally set. Their prices do fluctuate during, like they have high season, low season, and not only do the resort prices change, but also the dining can change. Like the price of the buffet might be different. So we were looking at January and February, but we are DVC members, and we ultimately went to the DVC calendar, and February is considered a high season. So it was considerably more expensive. It was considerably more expensive than January. So we settled on January.
Right. Now, we anticipate not having to deal with the crowds of the holidays. Everyone's going to be going back to school those holidays. Winter break, we're going to start to wind down. They're going to move the crane up to the castle. Start tearing the lights down. So as long as you don't mind that being in the pictures, which a lot of people really get upset about that. They really hate that crane. However, that crane's not going to stop us from having a good time.
We'll just learn how to use Photoshop.
Right. um, so, so that's the time that we think is going to work best for us. Now that being said, January doesn't necessarily always mean that every day, every minute is going to be low with crowds, because you have Martin Luther King weekend, which is a very busy weekend. Crowds, they definitely see an increase in the crowds. When you're going for a longer time though, it doesn't seem to be as big of an issue, because you can sort of game plan around that weekend if your stay sort of straddles the weekend. Whether it's like if Saturday's going to be crazy, maybe that's a day you don't go to the parks. If you stay in a beach club, maybe that's a day you go to Stormalong Bay. There's also what's it? Marathon? Is a marathon?
Marathon weekend is usually the first full weekend in January. Now we were talking about possibly trying to avoid that. I have a friend who's trying to talk to me about training for it, so maybe we'll do that instead.
Yeah, I have no interest in running unless I'm being chased by someone. But more power to you if that's your thing. From what I understand though about the running and the marathon weekends and the races, is it doesn't really affect the crowds in the park. It may affect your dining at times. Scientists tell me that running makes you hungry. So it would make sense that people were doing that. I can't speak on that.
I think the biggest effect that the marathon weekend has is resort availability, because there are a lot of people that go to the marathon but don't go into the parks. There's a lot of family members that will come to support runners, but not go into the parks. So definitely something to keep in mind when trying to plan your trip, trying to book your resort. Is booking it out far enough advance that you aren't going to be stuck as far as I could get 3 of my 5 days I wanted, or I can only find availability at this resort, but I want this other resort.
So to sum up, we are going to be shooting for January. Of course, that also is subject to change, because as you'll begin to see as we start this process, a healthy portion of over a year away from the intended trip, there's a timeline to these things. There's a period of time, there's a marker that you hit where you make your reservations at your hotel. There's a marker that you hit where you start making your dining reservations. There's a marker that you hit where you start making your fast pass reservations, which we'll get to all of that. And as we get to all that, we'll discuss in larger, broader terms, those decisions as they would apply to you in your situation when you're making your plans. So if you've actually been there in January and you have anything to share, we'd love to hear from you, either in the comment section, under the video, which, by the way, please click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Or send us a message on Facebook at Family Magic Weekly. Send us a tweet at Family Magic WKLY.
Yep.
Or send us a photo on Instagram of something.
Of your trip in January.
Yeah, or your cup of coffee, or whatever people do with Instagram. We definitely want to hear feedback from you. If you disagree with us, if you think we should be going a different time, definitely, give us your thoughts. We definitely want to hear from you and make you a part of this. So thanks for watching, and
see you next week.
Be careful.